Hi, my name is Laura Boone and welcome to this session of a romantic rendezvous lockdown with Maya Rodale, Carolyn Linden and Vanessa Riley. They've all agreed to read something from their books for us, and these are some of the best historical romance authors out there. So if you don't know them, you're in for a treat. Welcome, ladies.
Thank you.
Thank you for having us.
Thank you.
A reminder that the authors will reveal their treasure hunt codes at the end of the session, so be sure that you collect those before you sign off. I'll start by just giving an overview of each author's career, and then Maya will lead off for us. So Maya Rodale began reading romance novels in college at her mother's insistence. She's now the best-selling and award-winning author of numerous smart and sassy romances. Her most recent novels include An Heiress to Remember and Some Like It Scandal. A champion of the genre and its readers, she is also the author of the non-fiction book Dangerous Books for Girls, The Bad Reputation of Romance Novels, Explained, and a frequent contributor to NPR books The Huffington Post, Bustle, and more. Maya lives in New York City with her darling dog and a rogue of her own. Carolyn Linden was born a reader, not a writer. She earned a maths degree from Harvard University and wrote computer code before discovering that writing fiction was far more fun. Since then, the Boston Red Sox have won the World Series 4 times, which is not related but still worth a mention. Her books have been translated into 17 languages and have won the NEC RWA Reader's Choice Award, the Daphne du Maurier Award, the NJRW Gold Leaf Award, and RWA's Rita Awards. Her latest book includes About a Rogue, At the Wedding, and A Kiss for Christmas. She lives in New England. Vanessa Riley writes historical fiction and historical romance set in the Georgian, Regency, and Victorian eras, featuring hidden histories, dazzling multicultural communities, and strong sisterhoods. Vanessa writes for historical romance readers who admire and acquire books that showcase women who find joy in sweeping kisses and strong sisterhoods. Even in the darkness, she promises to give you laughs and to show you how light always prevails and how love always, always wins. Her most recent book is A Duke, a Lady, and a Baby, which I have to say, Vanessa, has a fabulous cover. I just love that. Vanessa holds a doctorate in mechanical engineering and a master's in industrial engineering and engineering management from Stanford University. She also earned a BS and MS in mechanical engineering from Penn State. She's been a radio anchorwoman and church announcer. She's president-elect of the Beaumont, a specialty history chapter. She's also a member of the Georgia Romance Writers, NINC, and Historical Novel Society. She's on the board of the directors of Christian Book Lovers Retreat, where readers escape for a weekend of fun, faith, and connection to the author community. She loves her Trinidadian grandma's cake recipes and collecting Irish crochet lace. So, Maya, I'll hand over to you now, and I look forward to hearing what you're going to read for us.
Well, thank you for such wonderful introductions, and thank you, Carolyn and Vanessa, for joining this with me. It's always great to have friends to read along with, and so excited to read tonight from An Heiress to Remember. It's my most recent release, and it is a second chance at love, rivals to lovers story set in Gilded Age New York City. So that's 1890s New York City, and it's about a divorced duchess who goes home to take over the family department store, but the boy who got away is now her rival. He's got the bigger, better, fancier store across the street. So I am going to read a little scene from when she goes to visit his store to scope out the competition. Okay. Of all the department stores in Manhattan, you had to walk into mine, he said. She looked up, hitting him with those blue eyes. Oh, hello, Dalton, she said, in that way of hers, like they were old friends and nothing more. Yet his heart was thundering with 16 years of anticipation of this exact moment. Look at me now, Beatrice. Dalton stood in the heart of the marble palace he had built. In an era of obscene fortunes, he possessed one of the larger ones. In other words, he was no longer the boy she'd left behind, but a wealthy, powerful, prestigious man to be reckoned with. He had played the game and won, almost. What brings you into the shop today? Is Goodwin's not to your satisfaction? If you must know, Dalton, I'm here as a spy intent upon stealing your trade secrets. Most women come in for perfume, silk, a little trinket. I'm not most women. I know. There was a world, a lifetime in that I know. They both paused subtly in awareness of it, neither of them wanting to make a thing of it. They were enemies now, and he'd do well to remember it, even if the feelings of 16 years earlier were crashing over him now like time had never passed. Would you like a tour? Do you really mean to offer? I am the competition. I heard rumors to that effect. After her unapologetic determination to stop the sale of Goodwin's, he'd heard about her brother taking an extended holiday, allegedly for his drinking problem. How is Edward? He has made the excellent choice to prioritize his health, she said smoothly. My mother and I are supportive of his endeavors to get well. He will take all the time he needs. It was rather curious timing. And who does that leave in charge of the store? Dalton asked. He noticed a quirk of her brow and an upturn of her lips. You're looking at her. He did look at her, fashionably attired, as beautiful as ever, wondering what ruthless streak ran behind that serene expression, that elegant countenance. You are the new president of Goodwin's, he said flatly. Yes, someone has to restore it to its former glory. Why not me? So you're not jesting about being the competition. Did you doubt me, Dalton? There was no good answer to that question. Instead, he said, let me show you around. I'm sure you'll find ideas worth stealing. She laughed and rolled her eyes. A divorced duchess of a certain age rolled her eyes at him, the merchant prince of Manhattan, or so people said, and one of the city's most eligible bachelors. She rolled her eyes like some young, holier-than-thou girl of 16. And just like that, he remembered young Beatrice, and he remembered working at Goodwin's and finding her just distracting. He remembered when she first noticed him and all the moments they stole together, young and madly in lust, running through the housewares department and sales floor after hours, making eyes over bolts of silk and satin under bright chandeliers. He remembered her laughter, her enthusiasm, her inability or refusal to filter her thoughts. He remembered the way she rolled her eyes when her mother told her to soften her laugh or move less exuberantly. He did not want to remember that version of Beatrice, the version he once loved. Instead, he focused on the woman in front of him, his competitor, his rival, his last obstacle before that sweet satisfaction of revenge. She was bright, intelligent, and apparently ruthless, but he had years of experience and was equally determined. He could afford to give her a tour, let her steal his secrets. He'd only dream up more. Let's start with the millinery, he said. And they started with the millinery. The end for now.
Thank you very much, Maya. That was wonderful. Carolyn, you're up next.
Okay, well, thank you very much for inviting me. Thank you, Maya, for inviting me to come and join you, and Vanessa. It's always fun to do these things with friends, like you say. So my new book is called About a Rogue. It is the first in a new series called Desperately Seeking Duke, where a duke actually and his mother realize that there are no available heirs to his title, and they need to find some and get them in shape to inherit eventually. And first book is about the most distant possibility, a man called Max, who's been a gambler and a rogue and has never had anything in his life. So the Duchess gives him some money and says, get your life together, because you could possibly, by some remote chance, become the next duke. So Max takes the money and runs off straight away to find himself a wealthy wife so that he'll be independent, because he thinks he is the longest shot of all long shots to become a duke. He knows it's not going to happen, and he thinks he would be terrible if he did become a duke anyway. So he has a perfect bride all picked out, the eldest daughter of a wealthy pottery manufacturer who's based on Josiah Wedgwood. Unfortunately, she's in love with someone else, and she elopes the night before the wedding with her true love, leaving her younger sister, who is much more strong-willed, to step up in her place at her father's kind of angry prodding. And she does, but she's not happy about it. So the section I'm going to read is when they've been married for a couple of days and they're walking home from the factory together. He's trying to figure out how he can win her around, and she thinks he is the most craven fortune hunter of all time, who's only there after her father's money and her factory, which she feels very, very attached to. She works in the factory herself. So she's extremely invested in the family business, and she's not happy that Max is there. So let's see. You spend a great deal of time thinking about the state of our marriage, Max said. His wife rolled her eyes, but her steps also slowed. Far too much. Would that I could stop thinking of it entirely, or better yet, forget it ever happened. He laughed. Perhaps you ought not to stop thinking about it, but change how you think about it. She raised her brows. And become a simpering, silly bride who never puts up a word of protest to anything you say, Mr. St. James. She shook her head. Wouldn't you find that perishingly dull? I would, he agreed. I like a woman, passion and spirit, but not to marry, obviously, she said with a sly glance at him. Perhaps not originally, but fate seems to have guided me in that direction, just as it did to you. Excuse me. He wondered if she'd had another suitor or someone she fancied for a suitor. He didn't like to think of his wife pining for another man. I never thought to marry at all, she said. Never? Max had not expected that answer. Of course not, she said firmly, her lips turning up. Certainly not to anyone like you. I understand, he said with mock gravity. Most women never dare even dream of that. She stopped. You conceited rake. I'm not a rake at all, he countered. I'm a happily married man. Why didn't you want to marry? She rolled her eyes. A married woman has no right to anything, even that which was hers before her marriage. Her money, her lands, her business, even the clothes she wears are his. If she bears him a child, it's his child, and he can take the child from her at his whim. She looked at him. Would you surrender all that in any bargain, sir, for yourself? Said Max thoughtfully. When a man marries, he becomes the guardian of his wife, responsible for her room and board, liable for his debts. Men have gone to prison for their wives' debts. If she bears a child, any child, he is obliged to support that child as his own, even if half the town knows his wife was unfaithful. Good heavens, she said, laughing a little. It sounds a miserable business for both people. I can't imagine why anyone would desire it. Max grinned. There are certain pleasures that compensate for all that. Their walk had brought a very fetching flush to her cheeks, and her breast plumped up over her bodice, ravishingly tempting. Still amused, she waved one hand. Not for us. I told you this is a chaste marriage. And it's beginning to hurt my tender male feelings, he told her. Bianca laughed, a full, throaty laugh he'd never heard before. Max's smiling éclat faltered. She was bewitching. He hadn't expected much in that regard from his marriage. Her sister had given little sign of attraction to him, even for a reserved lady. But Bianca, Lord above, the sparks of attraction were scorching him on all sides. Do you know, she said, reluctantly amused, as Max tried to absorb this new realization about his bride. I think I might have liked you if we weren't married. Oh, you mustn't hold that against me. But it is by far your greatest fault, and one I cannot overlook. She heaved a sigh of regret. We must resign ourselves to being adversaries, or at best, indifferent housemates. Max shifted toward her. Surely not. I can think of things far, far better than... His gaze dipped once more, almost against his will, to her bosom. Indifferent chastity. Her eyelashes fluttered. What a tragic waste of imagination. He grinned at her. Oh, God, yes, he did like this woman. For the first time, he was completely glad his intended bride had eloped with another man. Imagination is never wasted. Fortunately, I know how to bide my time, and my imagination will keep me very warm while I do. She smiled widely. For your sake, I hope so, for I certainly shan't. So that's how they are getting along early in their marriage. And let's see, what else can I say about my book? I have one thing. If you buy the ebook, there's a bonus story in it. It'll be available eventually to everybody, but that's my extra bonus. It's a little romance between the lady's maid and the valet, which was so much fun to write.
Well, that sounds lovely. Thank you so much, Carolyn.
Thank you.
And now we'll ask Vanessa to read her extract for us.
So today I'm going to read A Duke, the Lady and a Baby. And this is a story centering on a West Indian heiress from the colony of Demerara. She's married and has moved to England. Unfortunately, her husband has passed away, and she's a new mom. There's an evil uncle who has thrown her into Bedlam because whoever controls the child, Lionel, the baby, controls a fortune. And Patience has been broken out of Bedlam by the Widow's Grace. It's a group of women across England who are dedicated to restoring widows to their rightful places in society. So Patience is, once again, she's sneaking in to her old home where her baby is currently being somewhat held hostage to feed Lionel and to make sure that he's well. February 1st, 1814, London, England. It was a universal truth that no matter her background, face, or charms, a widow in possession of fortune would be targeted for theft. In my circumstances, I've been cheated of everything, even my greatest gift. Now was the time to defy authority, to strike and win. I'd almost been caught. My breath came in waves as I leaned against the closed nursery door. I squeezed my stomach tight as my shut lids and waited for someone to push inside. So close only to be captured. My heart ticked, numbering the follies of my life. So full of memories, sliding down a sloping banister, the chatter of silly sisters, a stranger's whisper at sunset, a blur of signatures on a marriage contract. Then a well-written note of love, of suicide. My soul was about to explode. Laughter filtered beneath the door. The haunting footsteps moved away. Maybe a maid entered a bedroom down the hall. I swallowed the lump building in my throat. The knot of bitterness went down slow. It burned. This was my house. Those servants once worked for me. Now I was reduced to sneaking inside Hamlin Hall. With a shake of my head, I stopped thinking of my failures and focused on my mission, my sole purpose, my Lionel. Feet slipping in my borrowed boots, I tiptoed to his crib and peeked at my baby. His wide hazel eyes seized me. Tiny hands lifted, but he made no sound, no cooing or crying. I pacified myself, thinking that my smart boy didn't want more trouble dropped on my head, not that he'd learned to soothe himself from neglect. Pity my heart knew the truth, that Lionel was a prisoner, and these circumstances were my fault. I stole a breath and pinned a smile to my lips. I was grateful to see my boy's face. My little man hungry? I unbuttoned the placard of my borrowed nankeen shirt, then unwound the bandage I'd wrapped about my bosom. This made my charms appear flat, manlike. Scooping up Lionel, I put him to my breast. Hamlin Hall is different tonight, Master Jordan. Is this your doing? My little man's suckle was so strong. Those distant concerns of how often he'd been fed crept forward. My insides broke into more pieces. I'm sorry. I wasn't smart, and now Lionel must suffer. He made an extra slurping noise, as if he'd spooned runny porridge. The funny notion calmed my frets for now. Tonight you eat big. Your change is in the offing. I felt it. I knew it would be so. Your mom is a spy again. But tonight I was almost discovered, trying to retrieve my trust document. I had to scurry back to the catacombs, running at top speed through the secret door at the stairs. The old butler was too drunk. Something heavy dragged outside in the hall. The new carpet? It would be ruined. Hushed whispers bubbled. Did I hear something about ruin or ripping? That carpet was imported from the East Indies. My hands flushed, my cheeks followed. The fine tapestry of woven rust and gold silks I'd installed to give this 200-year-old house new life would be torn up, discarded like me. A loud curse soared, then a clear complaint about a guest, a rep, a Reynolds, a Remington. His arrival, the servant said, would be imminent. Was this a constable from London, a magistrate from Bow Street, or an administrator from the lunatic asylum? Any of these men could be coming for me. I shook my sole of my boots to the collar of my coarse shirt. My jet bombazine mortar gown, once so proper and refined, was wrinkled and stained as they hauled me away. The servants in Markham, my late husband's uncle, said I looked crazed, a yellow-eyed loon. I remembered sobbing like a lunatic, but the hope in my heart said, cooperate, all will be well. I wasn't going this time, not without a fight. I was at war, one made for mothers, especially foreign-born women. I had Papa's knife in my waistband, forged in gold and white topaz. The pretty thing would be drawn to wave at them. I'd hurl threats and put on a menacing, crazy face. But could I actually harm or kill anyone? My father, the Sugar King, should have forged a gold gun, something I could use with slight effort and at an unfeeling distance, not up close, not inches away where I'd see a man's eyes. Eyes like my Lionel were my undoing. They took my battered heart on adventures, somewhere good, where folks were decent, where I was loved for being me. So that's the beginning of A Duke, the Lady, and a Baby.
Vanessa, that sounds so fascinating. And I just, as I said, I love the cover, and your book's on my to-be-read pile, and I'm going to get to it just as soon as I can. It sounds fabulous. Now, if I could ask everybody to hold up their treasure hunt codes, and I'm going to hold up Vanessa's because unfortunately I emailed her the wrong one, so that's my bad. And let's hope everybody can see all of those, and take your time, write them down, because as you know, there's some great prizes on offer. Thank you very much. And thank you, ladies. Thank you for those fabulous readings. And we look forward to many, many more books from you in the future.
Thank you so much for having us.
Yes, thank you again for having us.